Sip of water.
Mine's bigger than yours. Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to another Zoom-powered, because the other place let us down, episode of Poddywood, the show where we talk about movies. Yes, that. Where we talk about movies with the people who make movies. I am one of your hosts, Steve Hester, and joining me, as always, on the other side of the screen is...
Well, that would be me, Andrew Roger Carson, yet again, back this week. And it's Zoom. It's what we are having to deal with for this moment. Oh, is that my vodka? Thank you very much. Cheers. So yeah.
It makes a change. I haven't got anything for tonight. I may get something later during the interval. We'll see.
What about the drink? Hey. Okay. I wouldn't want to be in her shoes. Oh, and speaking of being in her shoes, Steve.
Which stars Toni Collette as a woman called Rose and her sister Maggie, played by Cameron Diaz. And then the two of them are more or less estranged and constantly butting heads. Maggie wants to go out and have a good time and sleep around and get drunk and not have any kind of responsibility, whereas Rose is the older, the more wiser, the more sensible sister, the lawyer, the ever organized. The two basically are an odd couple, and they eventually end up butting heads right after Maggie decides that she's going to sleep with Rose's boyfriend, or at least pseudo boyfriend anyway. And the two basically split up and are rejoined when Maggie discovers a long lost grandmother that they didn't even know. I thought the first half of the film was a lot less entertaining than the second half. I thought when things started changing around about the half hour, 40-minute mark, and the two end up separating, that the movie actually became more interesting. Up until then, they were just bickering sisters. And then the second half of the movie, Maggie starts to turn her life around under the support of her grandmother, who lives in a residential park thing somewhere in Florida. And the two eventually come together in the end, and they patch things up, and they get to the bottom of these deep-seated family issues. Overall, though, I actually found this movie rather bland. Bland. Yeah, I liked the two previous Curtis Hanson movies that we watched, which were The Wonder Boys and LA Confidential. I thought both of those were funny and interesting and dramatic and action-packed, and at very least they had, I'd say, more interesting stories. I thought that the actual basic story of this, even though it was very, very well performed, I can't take anything away from Cameron Diaz. I definitely can't take anything away from Toni Collette, who just seems to be always amazing, but actually kind of felt like she was sleepwalking through some of this. And I can't even take anything away from Shirley McClaine, who played a good part as their grandmother. But the whole thing it felt very safe.
Where is he now? He's on the beach looking at bosoms.
It wasn't really as dramatic as it could have got, given the basic premise and the way that
emotionally compromising is what you're saying.
No, things in the end are actually wrapped up a little bit too neatly, even though there is some issues. And it just isn't as funny as it could be either.
Well, I think it's more nice. It's not really supposed to be a comedy. I think it's more of a drama movie.
Yeah, but at the same time, it doesn't go too far into the dramatic territory like I would have liked to. Not with this kind of story. If you're gonna get such a tried and tested story as this, then you want to do something kind of interesting with it and dynamic with it. You go solid in one direction or the other. But this, it just seems very flat and kind of safe and not offensive in the slightest, but then again, it's not really exciting either.
And I will say, for Curtis Hanson, and we have covered Curtis Hanson a couple of times on our show over the course of the last year. I mean, it's there fundamentally sound with his movies. I still think
Yeah.
LA Confidential is his best movie in his resume before we lost him, obviously. And like you said before, the performances are faultless, really. I mean, Toni Collette, I think she's incredibly dependent on what any movie you put her in. She's like the alternate Sandra Bullock. You can kind of put her in anything, and you'll get a satisfactory performance out of her.
And I think that's why I thought she was wasted. She just it
Yeah,
felt beneath her, to be perfectly honest.
Obviously, mentioning Cameron Diaz, who is like the cinema delight back on the day.
Yeah.
And is making her come back from retirement now, from what I hear. In this, I mean, they try to give her, you know, some kind of gritty areas with her character of being like the family screw up and things like that. I think Cameron Diaz, her strength really relies on the roles like Vanilla Sky, like the role she played in Vanilla Sky for one. And on the other side of the spectrum, you have her role in Being John Malkovich, which is incredible. This probably was a very safe role for Cameron Diaz, you know. But it's always great to see Shirley McClaine. You know, I mean, this was. I'd even say this is a safe Shirley McClaine role. Really,
that I think is the underlying thing behind it all. Is everything is safe. Everything, the parts are in safe hands with safe actors. You've got a safe director with a safe script, and I think that's the problem with it all. Is it is?
Yeah,
it's safe.
I mean,
Was I unfriendly?
No, I mean, not compared to, say, Stalin.
Toni Collette was originally attached as the Cameron Diaz character.
Really?
Yes, and in the role that Toni Collette would go on to play was originally cast as Sarah Michelle Gellar, but Sarah Michelle Gellar dropped out of the movie, and it resulted in Toni Collette switching the role and then bringing in Cameron Diaz.
You know what? I think I probably would have preferred to have seen that.
I think we prefer to see Sarah Michelle Gellar in anything nowadays. We miss her.
What are you doing?
Breaking into your office and going through your private files.
Praise you to Toni Collette. I mean, she put on, I think it was £25 for this role.
Did she?
Yeah. She purposely made herself. She did the Renee Zellweger, Bridget Jones diet, you know, to fill yourself out more for the role. And then, you know, so she looked like that. So when she is losing weight in the movie, she is actually losing the weight.
Yeah, you can definitely see a noticeable physical shift from where she starts to where she ends. And you know, there's a lot that can be said for the character in that as well. The character's much happier. Everyone's much happier by the end of it as well. However, speaking as the end, there's one shot where Toni Collette and her new husband are driving off in the cab, and Cameron Diaz stands in the middle of the road, waving her off. And all I wanted was just a car to come out of nowhere, like at the end of Scary Movie, and just.
I do have some history on this movie. One, I mean, it was a hit. It grossed 83 million. It had a 35 million budget, so it did make its money back and then some. But in a bizarre bit of fact, this was probably the first movie that was released on DVD and not released on VHS.
Ooh. Oh. Do you mean not released on VHS at all?
At all.
At all. Ah, right, because I was going to say, I know that Armageddon came out on DVD first for ages before it...
Oh, no, but that was available on VHS. In Her Shoes was the first movie to not go to VHS and was exclusive for DVD.
Signing off In Her Shoes, it's safe. Like I said, it's safe. It's nothing that is going to test you too much. It's nothing that is going to stretch you. It didn't really feel like it was stretching the people that were involved. At the same time, it's a really inoffensive film that doesn't. Well, it just doesn't do much. If it's on, you can probably watch it and say, "Oh yeah, watch that."
Yes,
and then never really give a thought to it ever again.
And it's on Disney Plus.
It's on Disney Plus, yeah.
if you want a good, is it a chick flick? Would you class it as a chick flick?
I would, insofar as the entire cast is made up primarily of women. That seems to be the main thing about a chick flick: is one, there has to be romance, and two, there has to be some kind of inter-female rivalry. It definitely passes the Bechdel test, anyway.
The Bechdel test. I was waiting for you to bring that up.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that is In Your Shoes, and now we move on to Until the End of the World from Wim Wenders.
Buckle up, it's gonna be a bumpy one.
It's a sci-fi film about a woman called Claire who meets a guy that she knows as Trevor in a garage somewhere in the middle of the south of France, and she then develops a thing for him and then sets out around the world to track him down. All the while there's bounty hunters and shady government people that are trying to track him down as well. And the whole movie is exploring what you'll go through for an obsession. What is it that has their hooks into you? And it's everyone has got their own kind of obsession within the film. Her obsession is Sam, as he becomes known. Sam's obsession is pleasing his father. His father's obsession is his work. Sam Neill, who plays Eugene, Claire's former partner, he's obsessed with her. Everyone has some kind of an obsession, and the movie touches on them to a lesser or stronger degree. It's a road movie, like you said last time. I think you described it as the ultimate road movie, and there is a certain amount of truth in that. There's a lot of globetrotting everywhere from the south of France to Germany, Moscow, China, Japan, San Francisco, Australia. And there's some really pretty vistas in this, I'm not going to deny. What I feel like the movie is, more than anything else, is it's 3 films, at least, that have kind of been smushed into one. So first you've got the story of a woman going around the world trying to track someone down. Then you've got the scientist that's trying to perfect his device of being able to allow blind people to see images. Then you've got the story of the end of the world, and that can apply not really equally, but partially to both halves of the film. But the second half of the film is an almost entirely different beast from the first. The first is this globetrotting road movie. The second half is more or less all in one place in Australia, in this beautiful little gully in the middle of nowhere that looks like Cuba Petty, mate. It's a frustrating one because I like the ideas in it. I like the thought of there being this camera that can help blind people see, and that there's a government agency that wants to track it down and get hold of it, but it's never really said what they're going to do with it. There's a section where there's this whole thing about recording and viewing your dreams and becoming addicted to that, and that kind of fueling another level of obsession. But that comes so far at the end of the movie as to almost be completely removed from the rest of the storyline. I want to see that all being built up. I want there to be more to this worldwide chase between all these different characters. But the characters just kind of pop up in one side of the world and then vanish, then suddenly pop out at another side of the world and then vanish, and it just gets repeated on and on and on, and there doesn't seem to be any kind of rhyme and reason at times as to why they're going to where they are and what they're doing, other than the fact that the filmmaker said, I want to go here and film here and do this. It's frustrating as well because there are so many scenes in there where it just plays out in long masters, which lasts for 2-3 minutes at a time, with long silences just punctuated by this soundtrack, which admittedly has got some phenomenal names in there. R.E.M., Peter Gabriel,
Talking Heads,
Talking Head, right there at the beginning. U2. It's a
Cher.
who's who
Incredible.
of who was popular back in the early 90s. But at the same time, it says at the beginning that there is a 3-hour, they called it a Reader's Digest version of this film.
Yes.
I think there should be a Reader's Digest of this film, because there's
Not if you've seen it.
No, as pretty as it is, as long as the movie is, I think it would be a much better watch if it was shorter.
We call the police.
I've seen that version, and until you see the 5-hour version of it, you don't realize how much of that story is lost and how butchered it was. And I've always recommended to people that they need to see this 5-hour version of this film. And to be honest, I mean, this film was released, the original version was released in 1991. Wim Wenders kept the full version of this and was showing it exclusively at museums and art shows and things like that. The 3-hour version was critically mauled when it came out. When this 5-hour version came out, it was reappraised by critics to be a masterpiece. That is the difference in it. Because what you've got to look at here with Wim Wenders, and if you know Wim Wenders' films, I mean, he spent 14 years trying to get this movie made. It cost $23 million to bring it to the screen. As we mentioned, there was 15 different cities over 4 continents. No other film has gone to that level before. And when you consider that he had to use brand new crews in every single place that he went to, you didn't even have the same crews for every single shoot.
I can appreciate the logistical headache behind it all. However, I can't help but feel that you have to ask yourself, why is he going to these places beyond the fact that he wanted to go there? What is it about going to China that helped them with carry on the story? What is it that made them that was about Tokyo that made them made that suitable for carrying on the story? Why did they then have to go to San Francisco to carry on the story? What is it about going to those places which ultimately drives the story forward? And realistically, when you look at the story of him trying to gather family photos with this, using this special helmet, it's not really necessary to go to all these places to tell that tale. It feels like none of this was addressed at the script stage, and it was allowed to bleed through into the actual production stage. And you mentioned last time about pretending it was a Zack Snyder movie. And one thing which I have always said about Zack Snyder movies is he is in desperate need of an editor. He needs someone to say to him, no.
Yeah.
No, you're going way too far with this one. And I think that's what it needed here. Now, I can't speak for the 3-hour version because obviously I've not seen it. But all I am seeing in my head is that there is a story here which could be told within those 3 hours. Not necessarily that it could be told with what they shot. It would need to be shot for a 3-hour film to begin with.
We call the police.
That Wim Wenders' rough cut of this movie was 20 hours long.
Yeah.
So he shot an entire series. Claire, Solveig Dommartin, who was also in Wings of Desire. And then you've got, obviously, your international talent. You bring in William Hurt. No stranger to science fiction. I don't think it's one of his... It's a characteristic William Hurt performance.
Yeah.
You know, the only time I've really seen him step out of that comfort zone is when he did A History of Violence, which he was phenomenal in. And another movie called Second Best, which he is brilliant in as well. And then you've got Sam Neill, you know, who you all know from Jurassic Park, Alan Grant. He's great in Jurassic Park and not so great in Jurassic Park Dominion.
No.
Give me the money.
The absolute
Hunt of the World of People, which is brilliant.
Max von Sydow.
Of course.
Turns up at the end as his dad. And he's wonderfully unhinged, as he usually is in his characters. And yet again, I think that was another thing as well. I can't speak for a lot of them, but there are some performances in this that are just dreadful, such as her neighbor.
You were singing, so we went to the movies. I'm not angry with you, Makiko. Come on, you're my friend. But I have done something terrible. I must make it right.
Who I recognize actually from Beetlejuice, he was appalling. The guy who played Winters, the bounty hunter, he was all right, but at the same time he wasn't.
The Aborigine guy.
wasn't setting the screen on fire. They were both from. Sorry, I bought myself a fidget spinner. Whee! They were both from the Crocodile Dundee films, because of course they were, because it was the Crocodile Dundee films. But apart from, there's not really an awful lot of emotion in the first half of the film either to drag you in. A lot of it's quite dour.
Yeah. I think the thing with this, I mean, from the story I was told, apparently the producers of the movie eventually had to pull the plug because Wenders still wanted to include Africa and South America in a kind of an epilogue and an ending scene. But the film does have some interesting things. I mean, it has a very early sat-nav technology in there that was predicted well. And yes, it's got that driving through Salford thing of where it kind of like says you're leaving a safe zone.
Yes. Run, bitch!
But the fact that he took this full version, this full version from 1993 until 2015, he was taking it to museums and everywhere and screening it. And it was only when Criterion decided to remaster it for a 4K. And speaking of remastering, I mean, this movie also had the use of very early high definition video, which is one of the earliest cases of it. Warner Brothers ended up releasing this. They picked it up as a negative pickup, and they released it on 4 screens.
Wow. It just goes to prove how much faith they had in it. Yeah.
The worldwide total that this film made on a $23 million budget, $830,000.
Oi.
I mean, it is a very experimental movie.
Yeah.
I think it's really of its time, and it is a movie, I guess you'd call it a cult, but I think it's more rediscovered, and I think it is a more, in the same way that Zack Snyder's Justice League is a more revolutionary film than the Joss Whedon Justice League.
Now, I do come to these reviews, and we did have this discussion earlier in the week, I do come to these reviews with as much of an open mind as possible, and a lot of what I was joking about last week about, it's a 5-hour-long movie, was, joke. It was acting up for the show. But I can't honestly say that I hated this, because I like the ideas that are here. It's just frustrating that you have to sit through such a slog before they actually start to develop and show themselves. It annoyed me simply that you can look at something like Justice League and say, okay, I see what's happening from the get-go, and I see where you're building to, but you don't even get to know what this device, this camera is about until the 2-hour mark of this film, which is a long time to wait before you actually get that information. So that's my take on it anyway. It's frustrating for me in many ways, because I can see what I would like it to have been in my head, but it's not what was there on the screen. And as what's there on the screen, it frustrated me more than anything else.
Well, you did like some of it, which is a good thing. You like the ideas that were on play. And, for me, I am a big fan of this version of Until the End of the World. I waited so many years after hearing that a version of this existed. I've found a soundtrack to it on CD in a second-hand store.
Was it on one of those square CDs that are in the car, which I think look great?
Yeah. And I've got to admit, I fell in love with the soundtrack to this film, which gave me more of an appreciation of it. I'm sure I still have that soundtrack on CD somewhere. And that's what kind of made it for me stick in the memory for all these years. And when I finally saw a full version on my big screen, of course, it felt justified to have its space as a certified fresh movie. Well, anyway, I mean, that is what's in the box for this week.
Yes.
It was a very long what's in the box for a very long movie, and in her shoes also. So without further ado, get those anniversaries on the go.
We
watch them again all of the time, or we get them on Prime for free. But we only know how old they are when we learn their anniversary.
It is the anniversary section, looking at the movies that were released this week over the decades. We go back from the 1980s this week all the way to, I guess, probably 20 years.
Maybe. Well, you tell me. This is your segment. You know what it is that you're doing.
A bit rusty.
I obviously don't. No. But
No.
you do.
No. Well, this is the kind of surprise. So let's start back when we were young kids. We're going to go all the way back to the 1980s. 1984 this week. Can you believe, Steve? It's been 40 years since the movie Silkwood was released. You don't know it, do you? You don't know what Silkwood is at all,
no.
do you?
No.
Philistine. Okay.
Was that a prequel to Torchwood, or?
That was your last chance.
Yeah? What are you going to do about it? If you're the best England's got to offer, then God help you.
I'm Welsh.
This was based on a true story. It's a true story of Karen Silkwood, who was a nuclear factory whistleblower and a labor union activist. This was directed by a name that pops up every once in a while on our show, Mike Nichols. You may know him as the director of the fantastic The Graduate, or Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which is another fantastic movie of his. And this was his first movie in a long time. He hadn't directed in quite a while. So this movie was kind of a career resurgence for him. And of course, playing the role of Karen Silkwood would be Meryl Streep, of course.
Hey!
The
greatest... wonder that is Meryl Streep.
Yes, the greatest living actress in the business.
Apart from Sue Pollard.
Oh, God. Sue Pollard. So, yeah, I mean, this was based on the true story of Karen Silkwood. It would also star Kurt Russell, taking a step into a more dramatic role. I think this was the first time he'd really done a dramatic role. He'd stepped out of the Snake Plissken Escape from New York role, which is probably what he was best known as at the time, and probably his best role ever.
We'd make one hell of a team, Snake.
Name's Pliskin.
And also in this movie, it turned out to be the first dramatic role for Cher.
Oh, right.
Yes. So
this was prior to Mask, then, I take it.
Yes, this was just prior to Mask by a couple of years. Obviously, a few years before her Oscar-winning turn in Moonstruck, which is another fabulous film.
What happened to her co-star in that?
I lost my hand! I lost my bride! Johnny has his hand! Johnny has his bride! You want me to take my heartbreak, put it away, and forget?
I have no idea.
No.
But yeah, this was the first time we'd all seen Cher really de-glamorized, because she was the kind of pop princess and stuff like that. So in this, she's gone for a really kind of grungy look and really dramatic role. Her and Meryl Streep got on really well. And became good friends, which obviously you can see they're still showing up together in stuff like Mamma Mia and things like that. And strangely enough, they were both in that Farrelly Brothers movie, Stuck on You, in cameos as themselves.
Oh, hi. Can I help you?
This movie has quite a bit of history. I was doing a bit of reading up on it. Because obviously it was all about the nuclear factory workers and the real Karen Silkwood, who mysteriously died in a car crash after being the whistleblower. But also she was in an accident at the nuclear factory. She was radiated by 40 times a usual dose of radiation.
Wow.
In fact, in her East Texas grave, still to this day, a couple of years ago, people went to her grave with a Geiger counter, and it still emits enough radiation from her grave.
Wow.
Yes.
Holy crap.
Yeah, that's quite something. But it's notable for a few things. I'll get it out of the way first. Yes, this is Meryl Streep's only nude role that she has ever done.
I had no idea she'd even done a nude role.
Yes, she's very uncomfortable. She flashes her breasts at one of the co-workers in a scene. The development of this film took 9 years following Karen Silkwood's death to be told. It started off being at Warner Brothers. I think Jane Fonda's company was involved with it at some point. Basically, Warner Brothers ended up dropping the film because the producer, Buzz Hirsch, ended up being subpoenaed in court to disclose all of the research materials that they'd had. So the actual nuclear company, basically they threatened legal action over anything in the film being the least bit fantasized. Everything had to be incredibly factual with no accusations or anything like that. There were certain scenes that had to be cut out that leaned too far into the company kind of being responsible. So the production of this film actually set a legal precedent regarding the protection of confidential sources for filmmakers under the First Amendment. Warner Bros. Didn't come back to it. It was actually ABC that picked it up following Warner Brothers backing out of it over the whole subpoena thing. And it got a limited theatrical release at first, but then it went on to gross, I think it was $35 million. And it became a critically well-received film. It even got nominated for 5 Oscars. And it didn't win any of the Oscars. But this is one of those rare occurrences where Meryl Streep is nominated for an Oscar and doesn't win.
Yeah.
No, and Cher was nominated as well. It was her first dramatic role, and she was nominated. And rightfully, Kurt Russell should have been as well. The screenplay was the first ever screenplay for Nora Ephron.
I know that name. Can't tell you what it is that she's written.
Well,
but I know
dancing
that
across
name.
the screen right now is a list of credits that Steve should actually know, but he doesn't. But he will do when this edit comes along. So yeah, I mean, it's a really good movie, really underappreciated movie as well, and a fantastic showcase for Meryl Streep and for Cher and for Kurt Russell and Mike Nichols as well. Obviously, he had a career resurgence. So every film that he directed after Silkwood is directly because of the Silkwood success. It is a really tense movie, and it's all based in fact. And I would recommend that you hunt this film down. And yes, it is in the box.
Okay, right. So I guess after that, we're heading on to 1994.
No, I'm going to come back to 1994 because I want to finish strong on this one. I'm actually going to jump ahead to 2004 because I cannot let this be the last film in the anniversaries this week.
I mess about with the formula. I get a ton of shit. You mess about with it all the time and you don't get anything.
No, you'll understand why.
Right,
because
okay, fine.
In 2004,
Go
a
on.
movie called You Got Served was released.
Oh, that rings a bell. For some reason, I want to...
If you've seen this, I'm going to be so disappointed in you.
No. I just mean the name. It's either a basketball movie or it's got Queen Latifah in it, or it's a basketball movie with Queen Latifah in it. One of the two.
Wrong on both counts. But
okay. Is it dancing?
I can forgive you for thinking that because the cover would make you believe the cover of the DVD would make you believe it is like a basketball movie, but it's not. It is among the first wave of street dancing movies.
Oh, yeah. No, I've not seen it. I've not seen it, but I know the type. Like Step Up to Das Streets.
Yes, which
that
was kind of on the back of the success of this.
Yeah.
Now, this movie, I'm respect to the people in it, but the movie is terrible. It is
no Breaking 2 Electric Boogaloo.
The dance scenes are spectacular as they were. You know, you see them on Britain's Got Talent for free. But the acting is terrible. The direction's not much better. It was directed by a guy called Chris Stokes. Now, Chris Stokes was actually the business manager of all of the performers in this movie.
Okay.
So obviously he was wanting to push them out there. So you had, let's see if I can get the names right, Omarion, right? And the only other thing...
Marianne, I love your lovely locks, oh Marianne. Let down
Somewhere
your
out there,
from your castle.
somewhere out there, his friends are giving him shit for that right now. The only other thing I'd ever seen Omarion in, they did that Fat Albert movie with Kenan Thompson. That was equally as terrible. A terrible idea. It'd be more terrible with Bill Cosby in it, obviously. I also had Gerald Houston, who went on to do Step Up to the Streets. He was in that as well. Raz B as well. So they were all just these street dancers in it. Aaliyah, the pop princess, was originally a role was created for her. Tragically, she died in a plane crash before the film properly went into production. But this movie did introduce us to Kevin Federline.
You see what you did, movie? You see? Yeah. This is why we can't have nice things.
No. The strange thing about this, I mean, is the sizable hit that it was in the window that it was released in. This movie grossed $48 million on an $8 million budget. What's even more amazing about that? This movie became the #1 movie and made all that money on Super Bowl weekend of 2004.
Okay. Well, I know nothing about the Super Bowl, so it really doesn't mean
generally
much to
you don't
me.
release a movie around that time.
That's the owl's egg.
The saving grace about this film, and there isn't one, but the one saving grace there is about this movie is the parodies that it has had ever since it's released. It has been parodied on South Park. It was parodied in the Wayans movie Dance Flick, specifically. And you know that you are taking a drubbing when Meet the Spartans parodies you.
Oh, God.
Don't come up in my kitchen with that weak-ass shit.
It's not a great movie. It's not. It's like, there was another film I saw in 2000 called Center Stage that was all about like the dancing and or ballet or whatever it was, and that was just horribly acted. I felt so bad for Zoe Saldana in it because I was like, oh God, scrub that off your CV.
I just found out today that Zoe Saldana was in Crossroads with Britney Spears.
Yes, she was.
Didn't even know that. I just saw a picture of it on Reddit today. There she was.
I know. But yeah, You Got Served. It's not a movie kind of worth hunting down. I suppose if you like street dancing, then it's great. You know, it's great for that choreography and stuff like that. But the movies that are the most cliched dance movies, if you've seen one, you've seen them all. You know, it's hard to say this, but Step Up is an actual better movie than this.
So it's a step up.
Yeah. Step Up Revolution is a better movie than this. That's saying something. So yes, 20 years ago, You Got Served a bunch of shit.
So what's next? Are we going to 2014 or are we leaving that one and going back to the 90s?
No, because we only had 3 this week. Because I really didn't want to talk about the butterfly effect after we kind of said what we needed to say about it last week. So I'm going to go back to 1994. This is a movie, a very underappreciated movie, cult classic. I think we can definitely call this a cult classic. So in 1994, this week, a low-budget science fiction horror movie called Death Machine was released.
Okay. The name rings a very vague bell, but it's not one that I've come across now.
Okay. Well, Death Machine was the first ever movie of Stephen Norrington.
Right.
Who would go on to direct Blade. He
Blade.
would also go on to direct, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, we won't mention that one. But yeah, he had been an effects technician throughout the 80s on some huge films. So he'd worked for Stan Winston, for Rick Baker, for Dick Smith. He'd been an effects and creature technician on Aliens, Alien 3, Young Sherlock Holmes, Gremlins, Return to Oz. Huge movies, you know, and basically he got this idea that he had shown to some executives for this low budget science fiction movie, and they really liked it. They managed to get him a budget of $500,000, which is not a lot of money.
No, that's chicken feed.
It is chicken feed or independence.
It really is.
You know, he made up for it by making this incredibly violent and stylistic horror movie, sci-fi horror movie, which starred Brad Dourif in probably his most maniacal role you've ever seen. Is it his best? No, I'll go with Lord of the Rings. I think his work in Lord of the Rings is just incredible. Serious Wormtongue?
Be silent. Keep your forked tongue behind your teeth.
Like
Grima Wormtongue.
Grima Wormtongue, yeah.
Yes.
Or if you've seen him in Deadwood, the series Deadwood and Deadwood the movie.
Or Chucky.
And it also starred the Australian actress, I'll get her name right, Ely Puget. The only thing you may have seen her in, yeah, thank you, was The Lawnmower Man 2, but a lot of people never admit to seeing
Oh, God, no.
Lawnmower Man 2.
No. I could barely stomach The Lawnmower Man 1, and there's no chance I was going to go out there and watch Matt Frewer do whatever it was he was doing with that.
Max Headroom on a bad day. She also starred in a sci-fi horror movie in the early 90s called The Rift, which is a tough film to find, but it is out there. But this film also featured, and this is a special one for you, Steve, William Hootkins.
William Hootkins? You
know that name, don't you?
Where do I know that name from?
Well, he's an American-British actor, but you will know him as Porkins in Star Wars A New Hope.
Oh, right. Okay. That will probably be the only other thing that I might have ever possibly have seen him in ever.
So, yeah, I mean, this is a story about Brad Dourif's twisted, demented character he was a child genius who's grown up to be this really demented and sick and twisted guy who creates these weapons for this company. And one day he just goes absolutely crazy and creates this death machine, which is one of the most impressive mixtures of stop motion and actual hydraulic machines that goes around killing people in this building that is trapped in this building. And it was all shot at Pinewood Studios here in the UK. Right. And it is excessively violent, but it wears its heart on its sleeve for sure. Some of the characters in there, their character names I picked up on this one watching it again the other week. So you've got, wait for it, Jack Dante.
Jesus Christ.
Scott Ridley.
Really?
Yes.
Ridley Scott.
And just to be subtle, one called John Carpenter.
Really?
So these are
There's
all
no one
the
called
influences.
Cameron James in there, or
No.
Lucas George.
It is noticeable that this movie has the first on-screen roles for Richard Brake, who obviously went on to do Doom as the nasty psychotic drug addict.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going down to El Honto. I'm gonna lock myself in a motel room with a bottle of tequila and 3 she-boys.
But it also had the first acting debut of Rachel Weisz in a small role.
Oh, right.
Death Machine has been banned in several countries for what was deemed excessive violence, especially for an elevator scene, which is one of the most wince-inducing scenes you'll ever see in this clip right here. I mean, sadly, it ended up in a lot of countries going straight to video in a very edited version of it, but the full version is now being released. I don't think it got a theatrical release in the US. I don't think it got a theatrical release in the UK. I think it went straight to video in both. But in Japan, it was absolutely, a huge moneymaker.
No, I could probably understand that because the Japanese tolerance for violence is definitely a lot higher than ours.
God. Tetsuo the Iron Man. Oof,
some of the stuff which, Ritsuki Doji. Oh, Jesus.
Oh, the sadness. But I mean, this was the movie that got Stephen Norrington the job on Blade. So that when you see Blade, you see all the influence that Death Machine had. The movie is a favorite of mine. I do love this movie because for me, it was like, you really did this for 500,000? I mean, this looks like it must have cost 4 or 5 million. You know, he really, really made the most out of it. And it's great because you do not see, he takes the Alien approach, which is obviously the Ridley Scott approach. You do not see all of this thing at once. It's towards the end when you actually get to see the full extent of what this machine is. And it is an amazingly designed monster that I'm sure Rob Bottin and Stan Winston will be so proud of.
Yeah, well, look, he's already got a background in special effects, and he'll know about how to light that, build that, and how to make that look as impressive as possible for as little outlay as possible.
It's just a wild, fun movie to have included this week. Yeah, and it's not critically acclaimed, but it is on the cult radar. So I would definitely love to draw attention to this movie, and people should go and check it out. I think you'll have a wide ride with it.
Well, depending on how much we've been able to squeeze in and how much YouTube will actually let us put out there, you may be seeing all kinds of gore stuff, or you may not. But I tell you, there's one thing that you will be finding out, though.
What's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the box?
Well, what's in the box? It's that time again. It comes around quickly, doesn't it? Well, not for the people watching, but for the rest of us. What's in the box is the part of the show where Andy's going to pull out the name of a movie that is certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, or is certified interesting on Rotten Tomatoes. However, back in the old days, we did only used to do the one. Now we're going to be doing two. Just like we did on the opening of the show. So, the whole plan is, if he pulls out ones that I have seen, then just keeps on pulling out names until we find one that I haven't, and then I go away and watch them before we record the next episode. Oh.
Simples.
Simples.
Simple.
Right.
Okay.
Let's cue the music. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce. Okay. What's in the box this week? Now, our record is what, 5 that you've seen in a row?
5, yes.
So we haven't had anything as good. That was a long time ago. So now
it was, yeah.
Let's see. So our first is oh my God, this may need a special cameo to join us on this show. Steve,
right?
Have you seen from, I think it's 1987 or 88?
Okay.
It's a wild card.
Oh shit.
It's Back to the Beach.
No, I've never even heard of that one.
Back to the Beach is the main starring role for Tommy Hinkley.
Hey! Fantastic. Well, hopefully, yeah, we could get him back on and we can discuss that.
I'm telling him later.
Whole show about that.
Yes. Okay, so that is one.
That's
one down. So that's one for next week.
Okay.
So you got a comedy. That's cool.
What are you telling?
Are you ready for number 2?
No. But you're going to do it anyway, so.
Oh, well, it's another comedy.
Okay, promising start.
Steve.
Yeah?
Have you seen Wedding Crashers?
No, I haven't actually.
Oh. Well,
no.
Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson, you have Wedding Crashers for next week.
Okay. And they're both under 2 hours apiece.
Exactly.
I'm assuming.
So we've got some comedy next week. Maybe I can convince Tommy Hinkley to come and join us for it. Who knows? Let's put a call out there and have our regular Tommy come back and talk about
Hi, Tommy.
Maybe we can get some stories behind it while we're doing it.
Maybe. But even if we don't, that is going to be something to look forward to next time. So, all right. Oh, 2 comedies. That's usually unusual because we normally get a drama, a couple of dramas, occasionally a comedy, but we don't usually get 2 coming out at the same time.
Yeah. Well, in fairness, you've got kind of a PG comedy and an R-rated comedy, so at least you've got one to watch with the family.
All right, then. Right. So, well, that's going to be next time. For now, though, in between now and then, what we'd like you to do is to head over to our socials, which should be appearing sometime or somewhere at the bottom of the screen. We're on Facebook, Twitter. I'm still calling it Twitter. I don't care if you've got a website, Elon. I don't give a damn. It's Twitter. We're on Reddit. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Instagram. I'm guessing. Are you still using the Instagram one? You still on there?
It's there. You can find it if you want.
It's there.
Or you can just follow me on Instagram. I post shit on there all the time.
Yeah. But even if you're not doing all that, the one thing that you should do is head over to our Patreon page. The link to it is just on the bottom of the screen. There we're going to be posting additional content from the episodes, including longer versions, and you're also going to be getting new episodes a little bit before they go out to the general public, a couple of days, give or take. And this is all for the price of a cup of coffee every single month. You're helping us, the creators, to try and put out more creations. So it's in your best interest.
Yes.
Lord alone knows you don't get any money from YouTube unless you're screaming into the microphone or you're Mr. Beast. Like, what is with those thumbnails? Hello, Mr. Beast.
Are you finished? Have you finished on your rant, Steve? So I can just add a little bit going on here. So we've had.
Go on, talk about your book.
No, well, I do have a book actually. It's called "The Essential Movies of the '70s That You Have Never Seen, Never Heard of, or Completely Forgotten About." Volume 1. It is available on Amazon at this link down here. The second volume is currently being written. Hopefully, it's going to be available in February. I've just fell a bit behind because I've been a bit busy and had to watch all of these films as well as write the shows. This is kind of what happens. But we have had some people on Facebook who've asked me some questions, and I'll quickly answer them now. One, when are we going to get Jonas and Joanne back? Jonas and Joanne will be back with us soon enough. They will be popping up on some episodes in the future. Another one is Bill Daly. Bill Daly is going to be back with us shortly. We were discussing earlier today that it is about time we did an episode on the 1998 movie The Avengers, starring Ralph Fiennes, Uma Thurman, and Sean Connery.
Not that Avengers.
Not the good Avengers. One. The terrible Avengers. I think Bill has so much he wants to get off his chest about this movie, so I think that's an episode that is going to be coming up soon. John Ashton is going to be rejoining us as well. He's currently doing reshoots on Beverly Hills Cop 4, some additional scenes that's coming out this summer. So we're looking forward to hearing more on that as soon as it comes available. And pretty soon, we are going to be rolling in some new guests and some returning guests. So we're just kind of getting started all over again. Thank you very much, everybody, for subscribing. And keep it up.
Yes. Well, with that in mind, it is a goodbye from me.
Oh, God, I've got to leave as well, I guess.
Apparently so. Clue what that thing was about. I don't know.